This is Hartford Whaler Nation. Welcome to Whaler Nation TV. Tonight I'm with Peter Hindle from theexaminer.com, and we are talking tonight about Game 7's.
That's right. The Whalers had 3 Game 7's in the NHL. We're going to take a look a little bit at the series, talk a little bit about what happened and whatnot, and right off the bat, we talk about the 7-game series they had with the Montreal Canadiens in 1986. They had swept Quebec, so we saw that, and the Whalers had just walked right through Quebec.
I was there.
Right.
I was there for all 3 games with Quebec. I was there for when they swept them. The place went absolutely crazy. And when you sit there and you look at the newspaper articles, the news coverage, the media love the Whalers. And when we talk about media coverage today, yes, it's about UConn. Yeah, a little bit of the Mohegan Sun and Connecticut Sun. And if you're lucky, the Hartford Current, as gracious as they are, will put the AHL team, whether it's the Wolfpack, the Connecticut Whale, on the last page of the newspaper. It's unknown why this happens. I guess sports sells, your headliners sell, whatever it may be. Whoever's paying their salary, I would think. But hockey has to be on the front page of the sports. Back when the AHL first came here in 98, was it with the Wolfpack? And Terry Virtue played with them. You had Janander. You had who was the goalie? What was his name?
My Barbara? You talking about?
No, not LaBarbera. Oh, I forgot his name. He was a little guy. I'm sorry. I apologize to Wolfpack fans. But when you sit there and you saw front page coverage when they were knocking in 10,000 people a game, and maybe it was just because they were new or whatever, but they had them on the front page. They had color pictures. Remember color pictures? They don't show that too much anymore.
No.
They really supported this new hockey club that was in town. The Whalers had left. The state had brought in the Wolfpack with the Rangers organization. And they really gave us a sense of as it was our team. And through the years, the Wolfpack, the Connecticut Whale, whoever was the AHL club at the time, has now filtered back to the last page. And if hockey is truly in Hartford, and people always say it, we have great fans in Hartford, and we do, then give the fans what they want. They want hockey. And that's one of the disappointments I've seen, with, especially the media. Paul Doyle does a great job. He's a great friend of our show. He's been on here several times, and he does his best to write the blog. He also had a part with the Hartford Whalers Forum. He's a great guest and a good friend of ours.
One of those front page articles that we're talking about, you can go to the current archives if you ever wanted to see that. But on April 17th, in that game, the first game in the Whalers Montreal Canadiens series, they won the game 4-1. So they had front page. Whalers steal one in Montreal.
I have some of those sports pages at home. When Dineen scored the goal. My God.
That was game 4 was the one where you see Dineen go around Larry Robinson, which is if you had to make a top 5 goals in Hartford, that's got to be number 1.
I think so. That's an unbiased opinion. I totally believe that if you were to capture lightning in a bottle as a Whaler fan, that was the one. I was there for that as well. I received 2 complimentary tickets from Dana Merzen, number 4, the defenseman, the gentle giant as they called him. He skated like a robot out there. He was so big and a good defenseman. Went on, played for Vancouver and Calgary. And it's one of those things where, that night specifically, like I said, if you could grab lightning in a bottle, I was sitting right behind the net where Dineen scored that goal. And I swear that roof was going to pop off the Civic Center, and the people went crazy. They were in the streets hollering. It was just the feeling of hearing our song and hearing those people around our team. It was just something I will remember for the rest of my life. We'd sit here, we talk about what ifs and that, and we dream about the NHL, the Whalers returning, if they're another hockey club or whatever. that's what people have to realize is that is Hartford hockey at its best.
Right.
Again, I've said it before, keeping the AHL here and keeping Hartford in the NHL market radar.
Right.
And I can only salute the guys that have been here. Kenny Janander is just a wonderful person and a good friend that I've met, had the privilege to meet many times.
Yeah.
Great for the city of Hartford
Been here
as well.
a long time.
Yeah,
he has. You know, when we were talking about those the Montreal and the Whalers series, it was Game 6 in Hartford where they beat the Canadiens 1-0, and that set up a Game 7 in Montreal, which was at the Forum.
It was.
Yeah, which is there was the Yankee Stadium of hockey places.
Absolutely.
It was so many championships have been won there. And the Whalers ended up going into overtime in that game, and I was younger then, so my memory of that actually is being sent to bed because it was on so late.
Yes,
it was on a late game. But I wasn't having any of that, so I snuck into a room where I could see a TV.
Yep.
And I watched, Claude Lemieux throw that wrister right above Liut's arm, which he said he kind of predicted.
The backhander.
Yeah, he said he kind of thought that he could get something over Liut's glove. He had actually kind of planned that out a little bit. But it was just a devastating loss to the Whalers. But it set up a season that was just to be remembered when they. And I'm going to ask you some questions now. We're going to try a little trivia here and see how it goes.
Well, before you start, though.
Yeah.
That game when they played in Montreal and lost.
Yeah.
Do you happen to remember that they opened the Civic Center?
No.
And they let people watch.
I forgot that.
They also had a rally party at the Hartford Hilton where they opened up the ballroom and put TVs in there so you could watch the game. And see, this is a city that embraced their hockey club.
Right.
Very important. On our last show, we just talked about how the city and the state have to embrace hockey in Hartford.
Right.
This is exactly what Mayor Peters did.
Yeah.
Mayor Perez for a short term.
Yeah.
And this was what surrounded our city.
Right.
These are the politicians that had pride in the Whalers.
Yeah, they did.
And generating that. There was a huge party. You see it in the Bleeding Green movie that Kevin Massacott put together.
Right.
It was all those fans that came together to watch those parties. They had their Whaler rally towels on. He interviewed people the news footage. WFSB has phenomenal footage of people being interviewed. And one guy I remember specifically sat there and said, "This is my first Whaler game I've ever seen because I came to Hartford and this is our hockey club."
Right.
And to watch this guy who was having a great time dancing all around in there, it was just a great feeling.
Yeah, it was starting to attract people that more of the casual hockey fan was getting into the Whalers, at that time, and it was great because it was something that was like a ball that was rolling, until they ran.
And
into
you see it today with the logo, the apparel that's still being sold everywhere, and people are still transfixed, as John Hodgman said in the Connecticut Forum about this fictitious hockey team, who the city of Hartford, Bradley Airport sells memorabilia for a team that doesn't exist.
That's right.
But it's still out there. It's still ranked very high in the apparel markets. On eBay, you see stuff. The John Garrett mask with the logo on it.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Yeah.
It is. Hartford has such great history with the Whalers and hockey. People have to remember it started with the New England Whalers, and here we are talking about the 3 Game 7s that really propelled the Whalers into, hey, look at us.
Right.
Sports Illustrated. I have a Sports Illustrated at home with Tiger Williams fighting. You remember?
Yeah,
he was with the LA Kings.
Yeah. He came
and he
from
had
the
Torrey
Whalers
Robertson.
Yeah.
And I think Stu Gavin was in the article with the Whalers.
That's right.
And they said Hartford who?
Yeah.
And it was actually a great article about Sports Illustrated doing a great thing about the Whalers and where they came from and where they were in the playoffs against a powerhouse like Montreal.
Yeah. And in that series, there were 2 rookies that it really stuck it to the Whalers. One was Patrick Waugh. That was his rookie year for the Canadiens and played great in goal, enough to win the series. And Claude Lemieux was a rookie that year, and he's the one that scored the game winner.
Oh, absolutely.
But it was just a great series. It put Hartford on the hockey map.
It really did.
The next year, they went 43 wins, 30 losses, 7 ties. And where do you think that placed them in the NHL that next year in terms of points? They got 93 points. Where were they ranking? They were the 4th-ranked team.
I was going to say 3rd.
Yeah, they were the 4th-ranked team. So they were now NHL. I'm not going to say powerhouse, but they were.
They're contributor.
They had several people. Yeah, they had several people predict them to win a cup in the next couple of years because of that core of Francis Dineen. Those guys.
Evan, Gavson, Gavin, Evison, and Lawless with the leg line. Funny story. In '87, I was a senior in high school, and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and our friend, we went up to Montreal. We were going up just to go and see Montreal. We're 18-year-olds. We knew we could go get a drink up there because you were legal.
Right.
And we go up there. We race up there on I think it was a Thursday night. And we're all set to beat. There was a snowstorm coming up the coast. And we said, we're going to beat up the snowstorm. So we go flying up there, go through Plattsburgh, New York, and middle of nowhere. Nobody's out there. We got there at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And we sit in the lobby, and the guy says to me, "Don't fall asleep. I'll give you some orange juice, but you can't sleep in the lobby." I'm like, "Really? We just drove all night to get here."
Yeah.
So I walk over and I look at the newspaper that's sitting on the counter, and it says Le Blizzard. I'm like, no way. Sure enough, we wake up Friday morning, or go take a nap in our rooms. Wake up Friday morning, it's snowing sideways. It snowed 3 feet of snow in 3 days.
Wow.
Saturday night, we're going to the Whalers and Canadians. We buy standing room tickets. Okay,
wow.
You can't buy a ticket at the Forum.
No,
and I remember going and walking up to the Forum, and you had the escalators that came up like this. And what it did was it was in the shape of hockey sticks that came down.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. So I walk in there. We don't have Whalers gear or anything, but we're going to see our Whalers play up in Montreal.
Right.
So we get in there. You're in the mecca of hockey, Montreal. So we go up there, standing room. Sure enough, I'm looking around, and I see these 3 seats, about 15 rows off the ice, right behind the net, right behind Patrick Waugh. So after the first period, I go over to the usher, and I tell him, I said, "Hey, those 3 seats are empty." I said, "I got $20. Give us the 3 seats." He goes, "I'll take your $20, but if they show up, you have to leave, and I keep your $20. I said, "That's fair enough a deal." I said, "Listen, my brother's Lindsey Carson. He plays for the team. All he could get me was these tickets, standing room." I said, "Come on, for a player on the ice, you can't cut me a break." He goes, "You know what, keep your $20. So we go down. Sure enough, we're close enough to the ice. I can hear their skates cut the ice.
Yeah.
The Whalers end up winning 4-3.
Yeah.
We get out, get back in that crazy cab driver we had. He's driving about 40 miles an hour. There's about 2 feet of snow. I said, "We're going to die up here." We make it back, have a great time.
Yeah.
And it was a great weekend.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my claim to fame in Montreal. They were very nice people.
Yeah.
Drank in a great pub, good Irish pub, of course.
Yeah.
Derek's Pub. We went down into the basement.
Yeah, that's right.
It had one dartboard and one Irish drunk at the end telling me, "Beer's no good, drink the hard stuff." So it was funny. But that was my claim to fame.
It was a great place to go as a Whaler fan because they definitely were a good tee up there.
They were respectful.
Yeah, they were.
They were.
Now in the second series, a place that's not always been great respect for Whaler fans was ironically, it's 4 years to the day of the first game against the Canadians. The Bruins play the Whalers in a 7-game series in 1990. The Bruins were the #1 seed. The Whalers were 4th in the Adams division. And it was a tough series. If you remember, you would see guys facing off, staring off. The Bruins and Whalers didn't like each other. They had met in the '87 series when the Whalers had done really well.
Yep.
They had beaten the Bruins 6 out of 8, including a 10-2 romping, which I witnessed, which was great.
You're an anti-Bruin guy these days.
So that was a lot of fun. But it was a great series. The Whalers went 7 games with the Bruins. The one sticking point of the whole thing is Game 4 at the Civic Center.
Yep.
The Whalers were up 2-1 in the series, and I believe they were up a 5-2 in a Game 4, and the Bruins came back and won. And
I actually have that game taped right now on my DVR because I thought it was phenomenal. They're up 5-2 and they lose the game 6-5.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do you remember who scored the breakaway goal in that game?
No.
Ivan Korovo.
Really?
All alone.
Yeah.
And who'd he beat? Reggie Lemlin. Reggie Lemlin back then was just a phenomenal goaltender. Right. He was all over the place, throwing the legs up all over.
Yeah.
And of course, when you listen to Fred Cusick and Johnny Pearson on TV 38 out of Boston. There was no Nesson back then.
Yeah.
It was great. You had all these. You remember the Rat, Kenny Linsman?
Yeah,
he was the center.
Yeah.
And he was such a pesky player.
Yeah.
Again, a guy you'd love to have, but you despised to play against him. He was dirty. He'd hook. You know. But again, Bruins-Whalers rivalry was just phenomenal. Terry O'Reilly, Milbury. Then later on, you had what was his name? Oates. You had
Adam Oates.
You had Neely, of course. A very good player. Oh yeah. And everyone blames Samuelson for wrecking his career, blowing out his knee.
That's right.
And then, you know, Jay Miller, Shane Churla, the fights. Are you kidding me? Two guys who punched the hell out of each other. And sat there and never bled. It's because I believe they have calluses on their faces.
You know, it was a good series. You know, the Bruins went on to the Cup that year to play Edmonton, where they ended up losing to I think it was Gretzky and company. So that was those guys. So, but you know, the Whalers gave them a good run. They went 7 games. The Whalers lost the Game 7 3-1. You could absolutely pinpoint to that Game 4 as the turning point. You know, the Whalers being up 5-2 and they were about to go up 3-1 on the series. But it wasn't meant to be. They did end up meeting the following year in '91, but that only went 6 games, that series. So this is the second Game 7 the Whalers were involved in. Unfortunately, it's another loss, but you know, 3-1. So you know, the final 7-game series that the Whalers played in happened in 1992, and it was even more phenomenal from the standpoint of the Whalers. We're always the underdog. This time, I think they were the third worst team in the NHL, but they made the playoffs. They made the playoffs with like a 26 win.
They just kind of snuck in.
26. It was because of the way the divisions were set up. 4 teams from the division went.
Right.
And they had 26 wins and made the playoffs, and they end up taking Montreal, the number 1 seed in the division, to 7 games in a double overtime thriller.
Yep.
And the Whalers in the middle of the season had picked up a goalie, Frank Pietrangelo, who was kind of supposed to be just a guy to hold it together and he ended up playing, and now he's got Whaler lore to him. Because,
absolutely.
I mean, played out of his pads. And to see him lose in the double overtime, you see him there, he's just crumpled.
Oh, sure.
And but boy, did they give him a real push.
But as you know, whether... You know, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to any team out there, but you know, there was teams the Whalers would play, you know, full-hearted. And then there's other teams you'd wonder why they even got dressed.
Right.
You know, when the real truth is the Whalers really went out there and tried their best. You really saw Montreal, Boston, Quebec, when Quebec was in there. Those divisional games were worth the price of a ticket and whatever you're going to buy at the game, because you knew it was going to be a battle. I mean, think of the fighters on Quebec back in the day. Right. You know, and then you had Michel Goulet. He destroyed us. The Stastnys. Oh my God. You know, and then Goslin, the goaltender.
Mario Goslin.
He was phenomenal. You know, so you know, our division was so strong. And then you throw Buffalo into the mix. Tommy Barrasso. Oh my God. Lindy Ruff. Quality defenseman. And then you got the fighters. You know, Brad May. You know, unbelievable. And you know, those are just our division alone. When you looked at it as a whole, we probably had one of the best divisions in hockey. You know, they always focused on Detroit and the West. You know, the West, the LA Kings back then were good, but they didn't hit that until Gretzky came to town and really got that big push behind them. And they spent the money. But you know, we enjoyed a lot when it came to those series.
I mean, it was Russ Courtnall that scored the game winner. You know, I had to watch that game a couple times because, you know, when you watch it live, and sure, I have a bias to it, but it always felt like that Montreal was crashing the net. To the point where they're almost like shoving Frank Pietrangelo into the net.
Now look at the rules.
Now
if the rules had all changed today, how many games would we have won? You know, think about it. How many times did Liu come out with a stick ready to take someone out because you know they were in the crease?
That's right. It was just it was one of those series that went the double overtime, and you know you're on pins and needles because you think that they got a shot. I mean, even the Bruins series when they lost 3-1, they're not getting blown out in these Game 7s.
Very competitive.
Yeah, and that's what brought the people in.
It really
was competitive. You know, you're talking about the Bruins series and the second Montreal series were just the first round. But the one that was special, the '86 one that set everything in motion for the love of Whaler Nation. That was a second round. And after that, the Whalers would have gone on to play the New York Rangers, who were an underachieving team as well.
Mm-hmm.
They could have easily maybe have beaten the Rangers.
That was back with Maloney and all that.
Yeah,
wasn't
the
it?
Rangers, they'd overachieved to get there, and they, the Whalers could have beaten them, and then maybe lost to Calgary in a final. That's kind of my prediction.
And Calgary was a powerhouse
well,
back
Calgary
then.
was very
Lanny
good.
McDonald.
Yeah. Well, remember they had knocked off Edmonton. Which hadn't been done.
In years.
In years, long stretch of time. So those were Game 7s that they had. The Civic Center's seen a Game 7 with the Wolfpack. When they played the Providence Bruins.
I was there for that one. That was a great game.
Yeah.
Terry Virtue scoring the goal.
Yeah.
And the place erupting. And, you had I would say 10,000, but I would say it was 10 to 12,000 that night.
I've heard that.
I had great seats.
Yeah.
J.F. LeBay was the goaltender.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. And he was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
He went on and he did a great job with the Wolfpack. He stayed for many years.
Yeah.
And but again, you had Richter up top with the Rangers.
Right.
He wasn't coming up anytime soon.
Yeah.
And J.F. LeBay did a great job, and he really carried that team through, especially when it got further out when they won the Calder Cup.
Yeah, I've heard many Whaler fans say that Wolfpack Game 7, Eastern Conference Final, was right up there with the Hartford moments in hockey in terms of how pumped the crowd was.
Sure.
They went into the finals that year. They won the cup on the road.
Right.
So that's why why that Game 7. In home was just a huge thing.
And when you look at that specific game, when you saw, like you said, the energy in the building, and again, I'm sure it had a lot to do with them playing a Bruins affiliate.
That's a good point.
I follow the Bruins now until our hockey club comes back.
Right.
But there's still that hatred for that Bruins logo and anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was a great time because they won. They were our team, and it was probably that cushion between the Whalers leaving and them marketing the Wolfpack correctly, and the media backing the team.
Because we're gonna have to see what happens this year. The team's been rebranded as the Wolfpack again.
Yes.
Will they be able to draw in crowds?
We'll have to see. Hopefully they get the support from whether it's social media. Frank Berrien does a great job with the community relations.
Right.
But they have to support this club in the media.
Right.
And they really have to. I mean, there's a lot on YouTube, and a lot of it has to do with their budget as well, I'm sure.
Sure, absolutely.
The Rangers are going to spend some money, but how much money, you don't know.
Yeah, right. So it'll be interesting to see how they go with that. The Wolfpack are starting Saturday night, as we mentioned, with their opener.
Yes.
They're going to play Norfolk.
And then there's a Sunday game, you said, right?
Yeah, there's also a Sunday game. Usually the opener, as we were saying, was usually a good crowd. It's funny, the next day, it's just not as well.
It's because of the football season.
It is, but it's always Sundays are not good, and any middle of the week games are a little bit low on the attendance.
But I must say, I do applaud the AHL from taking from a 5 o'clock start to a 3 o'clock start.
Yeah,
it's very important. As much as it's probably not beneficial because of the football season, it's good for young families coming out. They want to get the kids back into bed and get ready for school on Sunday night.
We're about ready to turn the clocks back. That makes it darker and everything, and people want to go home. You know how it's a suburbia Whaler nation.
Oh, I know,
so there's not a lot, in Hartford when you got the night, especially on a Sunday night.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how things go in Hartford. The XL Center is taking over, and Frank Russo ran the Civic Center back when the Whalers had all these games you talked about.
Right.
So when you get into history, Frank Russo and now Global is now taking over the XL Center. Hopefully you can return some of the magic to the XL Center and bring some people in.
Yeah. I mean, in our last show we talked about the renovations, and at least, like I said, seeing something being done with the building, is positive because it needs that, the TLC. It definitely does. You always heard Howard Baldwin say that the bones of the building are good. He had a study done through UConn. They said the building was, structurally fine.
Yes.
It's just about making it a state-of-the-art facility. And,
where people want to come to.
Right.
You outlined it in the last show where you said they're going to do all the upgrades with the 150 flat-screen TVs. And, I think the Civic Center needs a chance, or the XL Center needs a chance to be the nucleus to the city.
Right.
And we've talked about how much potential Hartford has and how the fans are the ones that support that city when it comes to hockey or the special entertainment events that are coming to the XL Center.
Right.
So, hopefully this will help. Hopefully it's not $38 million down the hole
Yeah.
that they're just going to knock down a building and forget about it like New Haven did.
Right, right.
I think our leaders are smart enough to realize if they take away the XL Center, you take away what lives in Hartford.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's going to be very important. You know, another thing would be helpful is this team, or the city, is in desperate need of some kind of playoff run. I mean, it hasn't been a good playoff run in Hartford in a long time.
Sure.
You know, those type of things kind of energize the further you go.
Right.
You know, and even though it's AHL, it won't be as large as NHL crowds.
Well, you remember
but it generates it.
You remember the line Rick Peckham said when they swept Quebec. Hartford is a playoff city again.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah,
that line in Whaler Mania.
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
it was a great line.
It was because it made Hartford a national landmark again.
Yeah,
and brought in that national exposure.
Right.
ESPN.
Yeah.
Hartford. Hartford, Connecticut.
Yeah, I know. And it's almost too bad that Hartford's this close to ESPN. It garners no coverage at all.
Well,
there's not even an ESPN zone, which would be nice. You know, nice thing for
that
Hartford to have it.
That was talked about on the Front Street project.
Yeah.
And you know, you walk down the Front Street, they're putting in the Infinity concert hall. They have the Capitol Grills up and running now.
That's right. That's right.
And they're bringing in there's a barbecue or Midwestern steakhouse coming in. It's Montana's, I think it's called.
Oh, Ted Montana's?
Across from the Capitol
Center?
Grill.
Oh, the Capitol Grill. Okay.
Right, on Front Street. So, you know, they are trying.
Yeah.
And now with UConn moving down there, CCSU is going to build a building down there. They bring their younger crowds down. Hopefully this will all help with the busway and everything else to really invigorate the city.
Yeah, part of the Front Street expansion there is the Hartford Times building. Which is a nice.
And UConn's taking that over, right?
UConn's going to take it over and put 2,200 faculty and students in there. You know, that's going to help. You get those students to attend AHL games, come to the Civic Center, attend events. You know, it's the beginning of a start of something.
It's a beginning. Hopefully they'll fill up the apartments downstairs and get a younger crowd in there where they can attract more people.
Get more Game 7's. You know,
and I tell you, Game 7's, you have it outlined here. You have John Anderson. Remember Risto Siltanen, number 8?
That's right.
Oh, phenomenal. Great slap shot from the point.
Yeah, yeah.
All I see him is taking a slap shot from the point wearing the Cooper rolls. Yeah. You remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
And he had the Micron skates.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a good
It was great. And we really had a great bunch of guys when it was Risto Siltanen at defense. You had Joel Quinville, as you talk about here, as a stay-at-home defenseman.
That's right.
He really was. You remember that goal? He dove.
Yeah,
and
that was the one that
Calgary. That was a Calgary.
He only
win.
Scored 3 goals that season, and that one was
the
most
first game of the season too.
Yeah, it was.
Yes,
it was an overtime against Calgary.
Yeah, overtime win.
That's right.
So
that's right.
We're getting towards the end of Whaler Nation TV for this evening.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, it's great to rehash these great memories in Whaler Nation. We look forward to you spending some time with us again. We're going to start to hopefully go on location where we can entertain you in some of the local restaurants and pubs. We've had some invitations, and we'll see how that goes along. We our producer, John Anderson. He's behind the board tonight. Wave, John. How are you, John? Everything's going well. So we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to catch you next time on Whaler Nation TV. And remember, we bleed green under one nation.